telling me about your vision. We're gonna dive in. So what I want to dive in a very specific way, because
Yep.
I am at the precipice of Wizer
Oh,
and
yes.
submitting my test here. So I've gone
Oh,
through
yes.
and done the 57 questions to the best of
And
my ability. It was overwhelming for me because I'm an overwhelming individual.
yeah.
That's awesome. And my decision profile, of course, that's hilarious, is the visionary.
Well,
Go
so
figure,
well,
as the founder of Vision Pros Live.
if you go and just press on there's another button you can press there, and it'll go deeper into why.
Let's do it. Let's do it. It's just too funny. I wasn't planning that, my friends. I had no idea that was what it was going to paint me. And there's lots of options, but I think
Well,
it's the view full decision profile, right?
yeah. So then go to the second tab, your strengths and core traits.
That's too funny.
And so your openness is really high.
Yeah.
So Dr. Juliet Bourke, whose research we built this off, she found there were 6. So you're very people orientated when you're thinking about your decision, which doesn't mean you're a people person. It just means that you will understand there's a lot of people you can consult on something to get the best outcome. And Juliet Bourke's research she was looking at the 6 profiles, and the visionary is actually the 7th we found by adding the big 5, the personality, because of people's openness. You also had 3 different processing ways, which is very rare. Not rare for a visionary, but most people are like, there's a primary and a secondary. And people can't really, how Edward de Bono was like, oh, we'll just put on different thinking caps. So if you go down to the other things, and they'll say, oh, well, let's just think like somebody that's worried about risk. And or let's think like process. People can't do that and interrogate that for long. So you can't really switch hats for a long time. So that's what her research found. So that's how you ended up a visionary. And if you weren't a visionary, your secondary is collaborator. So you are, secondary. And then if you go to collaborating with others,
Got it.
Yeah. So if you were going to make a decision, your complementary style, if there was just, 2 of you that had to do it rather than, it's not ideal.
Proper team.
Somebody that's process orientated would be good for you.
Cool.
Anyway. Yeah.
No, I love it. This is fun. Actionable strategies for growth. This got a lot more fun as it came out for Visionary. I was like, that is so perfect for our show. That's like too uncanny, because here I am, and I was like, I've taken a lot of assessments, and I'm 38. I've done at least 38,000 assessments in my life. And so I'm going through the questions, and I'm like, plus, I usually can tell and feel the direction something's headed. And most time I'm like kind of neutral. I'm like, well, I could be any of these. And so I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed by the process. But I was like, you know what? There's just something special though about Kylee, and about the processes. Like we live in a world right now, Kylee, and visionaries. This is so important for all of you. Thanks to systems like Lovable and Claude AI, etc., almost anybody can create an assessment of this type of depth and with this type of UX and UI these days. And so it becomes really hard to know like who actually is building something where they have the expertise to build it, and who's just kind of shadowing or playing with whatever's out there. And so getting to do that right before we came on, and then seeing you dive in and like, oh yeah, this is Jackson. And I was like, oh crap, like I'm talking to a Tom Rath, like Trains Finder 2.0 right now. You got some depth to you. So
well,
Kylee, go ahead.
I mean, I'm lucky that I'm riding on the backs of, giants. And, there's Scott Page at Michigan University, that he's a mathematician, and he looked at the importance of cognitive diversity and decision making. And Juliet Bourke, Dr. Juliet Bourke down here, that ran a whole department at Deloitte, she did the same thing. And, they've both written books about it. So it was great to meet her and have access to her research. And then my co-founder did his research in wise crowds, and so it's a whole lot of back stuff. And I think something that that we reflect on, that I think you'll like, is I think there's something biological about it too, in the sense humans are actually designed to make decisions together. But in the world we're creating, especially with things like conflict entrepreneurism, where we're being siloed, into different silos.
Help me see that real quick.
Yeah.
You said humans are designed to make decisions together. What is the earliest stage of recognizing that? Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think we're social creatures, and we don't all we were built socially in social environments, and people only have a certain number of ways you can think about something. Like if you can get 7 or more people because the other thing about the decision profiles is it's not like a personality test, which we can also go into some of the hilarious backgrounds of personality tests. But it's not like a personality test where you're looking to be something or another or be in a box. You actually are looking the decision profile is helping you understand who you need around you to make a decision. So you want every one of those 7 profiles when you're making a decision. Plus you want experience. So you don't want to be like Boeing that takes the engineer out of the room. Or NASA, both times at NASA, the Challenger and whatever, the engineers
to go back to, you inspired me to answer my own question. Yeah. And that's that when we come out of the womb, the first thing we do is usually cry. Like we're immediately like, help. We don't want to make the decision. We can't make the decision by ourselves. And so somebody's got to collaborate with us to figure out, are we sick? Do we need to poo? Do we need food? What is it? Do we need to sleep right away? Like you're right. We come out instantly, not making the decision for ourselves, but seeking somebody to kind of validate and help us through that experience. So, yeah.
Well, we're 18 years or more, with our parents, whereas baby seals are 2 hours? I don't know, like.
Wow. That's crazy.
Look at what's, being on our phones and standing in line. People don't, you look at a line, you look at a cafe, no one's accidentally talking to one another anymore.
Interesting.
So how do you, as a leader, while you're watching, all of this siloing, as a leader, you can't have a business that silos or your business suffers. And how do you make sure that the way we are in society doesn't enter into your business? People finding one another. And one of the research findings is that 75% of CEOs are one of 2 types in the Western world. So they are outcomes orientated achievers or they're options orientated explorers. And what happens over time is what we call cognitive drift. So the person at the top, we like to hang with I'm not talking about not liking difficult people. No one likes difficult people, like really difficult people. Sure. It's not about that. It's about when you're in a meeting and you're like, oh my God, here goes whatever again. It can be that little rub, can be that cognitive diversity rubbing up against one another. You don't enjoy the process or the risk. Why do we have to keep talking about the risk? As a visionary, you're like, oh, I want to go. I just want to go and be open. Whereas you can't go and be open. You can't go and be, you need all those other factors. We've got another tool that we use if you want to do external communication. And I just did an assessment of this board in Australia that had it just made a shocking decision. They all got fired. The Writers' Festival got closed down. And they were 8 out of 9 had primary and secondaries in risk, which is rare. That it's the rarest of the guardians are the rarest. So to 8 and 9, I thought, oh my gosh, the tech's down for the day. I was ready to make a phone call going, there's something wrong. Something's going wrong here. And I did it 3 different times on these people because I was trying to do an external assessment. And they were all guardians. Looking at that, what happened was they saw one risk, but they didn't have an explorer to go, here are all the risks. So they went down the well by themselves. They really went down this rabbit hole, fully committed down this rabbit hole, and they missed all the other risks. And the risk ended up being they all lost their jobs. And it was, at least no one was hurt. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
and there's the ones that are big. And you can do it with the Enron board. You can go back and look at all these decisions.
You
And you
got
can
such a
see
mind.
yeah. And now that we assess companies and we do what's decision profile mapping, we see a lot where companies only have in teams 1, 2, or 3 types at the most. And so that cognitive is choosing cognitive. Like, it's either also different types of people are, lawyers are one of the most homogenized groups there are.
You have such an interesting way of thinking and speaking towards your points, Kylee. I can tell your brain thinks in a whole different level of genius. I'm curious about 2 things. One, how you make your hiring decisions, or how how you've designed maybe a system around yourself to do that, and who you decide that works for you. And I think Wizer probably has something to do with it. But I also want to share my screen to go to your YouTube channel real quick. Visionaries,
Yeah, sure.
There's so much value that can be gained from what Kylee has put together on this. And for some of you, this may be way too technical, and over the top a little bit. I can say when I went to your website, Kylee, this is not a knock. This is what's coming for the future of optimizations. I'm curious, are you guys seeking funding? Is this tool something that you're putting out there? Because when you talked about capacity bias on this video, and keep in mind, my brain is fried today from weeks of battling with Claude AI on some very, very specific projects. It is crushing me right now, but in a good way. So this capacity bias, how much complexity the room can hold. I was like, well, the homepage for Wizer kind of threw me for a loop, and I was really kind of stuck. I was like, oh boy, where do I go? And I was like, you know what? I really like Kylee. I like what she's up to. I know the value of this. I don't care. I'm going to force myself to figure out how to get into this thing. And so I had some struggles with that initial process, but my friends, Vision Pros listening in, like, there is some serious genius built into this Wizer thing. So do you mind just kind of like brain dumping on me? How do you build your team? How do you go about finding people and talking to people and recruiting? And how do you go about and what stage is Wizer in? Because again, it reminds me of StrengthsFinder 2.0, and like Myers-Briggs and all that stuff, and DISC and I don't want to even be a Colby. Like, it's really, really powerful.
We do get anchored beside, obviously, personality profiles. And as I was saying, 90% of our clients start with decision profile mapping, where they are just going through and looking. It could be a team, it could be the whole organization, and working out who's who. It's a great starting point for understanding what you have. But and the bigger tool is, when you go to make a decision, the full platform, it tells you live. So say you're gonna make a decision about strategy. It'll ask you who have you got in the room for this decision. It'll tell you across 3 points what you're missing. So it's not just looking at that cognitive diversity bias, which is the assessment part. It looks at whether you've got those engineers. So it's looking at experience. And then it also looks at the diversity that matters outwardly to decisions, which is age, gender, and ethnicity. So what you don't want to do is homogenize any group. So as complicated as it sounds, we've made it as simple as it possibly can be.
I hear you. Well, the interface on the homepage, that can definitely be streamlined a bit. And the homepage is a little bit broken.
I don't know whether you've looked at it this week, but we have been, now that we're in. And, cognitive capacity bias for me is at a max with, trying to do everything, but really trying to streamline. So what like this, we're doing. Like, I've taken a whole lot of things off the top. Like, how do we? Anyway, I'm always open for more.
There's opportunity on it. There always is. But like, again,
I change it every week too. Like, how do we make it simpler?
How do we talk the assessment itself reminds me of the depth of a multi-billion-dollar Gallup like company. And so again, where is Wizer at right now?
Yeah. Well, we are in market. We are with clients. We also have our comms tool, which we made as the assessment of third parties, so you can improve your communication, which is also in there, it's a whole stream, and we've just moved off into its own website.
Are you guys at like 100 clients or 100,000 or 100 million clients? Like what?
No, gosh, no. No, we've been working on the tech for the last 3 years, and we're really confident with it. We've got, like 100 clients. We're
Okay.
just
You
yeah.
guys are babies.
Yeah, we're little babies. We're little
That's so cool.
babies.
Okay, so yeah, no, I don't want to make any assumptions. I'm trying not to like put a vision, like a
No,
cap on your vision or where it's at. But
we're early
holy
stage
crap!
startup material. So yeah,
Oh, it is so cool to be like right
so
there on the cutting edge of what you're up to. And I saw that chart that talks about personality test versus decision making, and I was like, okay, I get, and I'm excited because, well, I like personality tests, and it's incomplete, right, without the other side. And other angles too, of course. But like, woo, that just blew my mind. And the way you broke it down too, and sort of talk through it and help me see like, okay, there's a lot more depth here. And again, I took the questions and I doubted some of the connections of the questions, but as soon as it, I guess, like pinpointed me, and some of that, again, I know I'm going off the rails here, but a lot of how I respond to those questions has been affected by the recent years of trauma of my life. And so like, whereas I used to would have been like, oh no, like, yeah, I'm going to meet everybody I can in this room. It's like, now I'm more
yeah.
neutral. And I'm like, I don't know. It depends on the environment. I won't do that anymore. And Peter, what's his name? Oh gosh, Jordan Peterson. He talked about zebras, and how they camouflage. Like they don't really have any camouflage, but they have a herd mentality that keeps them safe. But he talked about, and when he was talking about that, how the big fish are always in the middle of the school of fish.
Yep.
Like the little fish always get eaten because they're always, and nobody wants to be that. Human beings don't want to be that. And I was like, I was kind of like Nemo. I wanted to go explore the ocean, and I didn't think twice about my life. And so, but no, no, no. Nowadays, I'm like, no, no, no. I'll go to the middle of the pack. So, does this quiz or assessment from Wizer, does it make room for that type of adjustment? Do we change how we make decisions, or do you think we're fundamentally always the same?
No, and it's not a personality profile. It is about that cognitive piece about you coming to how you make a decision. And I think you've got the primary and secondary that it's hard for you to switch between, but it's not like, I think the reason why we also put Big Five in there, because Juliet did not use the personalities in her research. But we did, because of that openness piece, and saw a little bit more movement about her thing. But I think,
Yeah.
I think one of the pieces of evidence we see is, depends on the room you're into, you'll adjust your
Yes.
behavior to think.
Absolutely.
So because you want to be, if the CEO is outcomes orientated, and adjusting your behavior might be quiet, you go quiet, too. So you're probably seeing things, but people aren't getting it out of you. And I think when we look at what Wizer's trying to do, we're trying to help people make better decisions. But if we think of what that means, I think it's addressing the structural issues that lie behind making decisions. And it's that bias. And it's that awareness for leaders that we all have bias, doesn't matter how great you think you are. And also I think there's a culture of making the captain's call. Oh, I'm the leader, so I'm going to do it. Whereas I think great leaders understand they're better off designing the decision room, and hearing and speaking last is very helpful in that. And so one of the big problems, one of the big biases that companies have, and we all have, is social bias. Who gets listened to and who doesn't? Like, hierarchy, seniority, loudness is a big thing. People think loud people are the most intelligent. So how do you stop that group think? How do you stop blind spots? And how do you stop limiting your creativity? And what the research has found is you are increasing your innovation by 20% and decreasing your decision error by 30%. Like, ignore it at your own peril.
Yes. And I don't know if I shared it with you. Right before I met you, I had just written an article on our blog called "The Most Expensive Decision You Will Ever Make is the One You Make with the Wrong People in the Room."
Really?
And
No,
it's,
I don't remember us talking about that. No way.
Yeah. Oh, that came out right before you and I met. And then I saw your system and I was like, oh my gosh. And as you know, visionaries, like I'm big on this, like they have to be able to make better decisions in order to really create clear visions and create the right cultures and
Yes.
know how to move their stuff forward. Like there's so much that goes into it. And so now, again, I took the little assessment. I took the assessment. I don't want to minimize it. It's very important, but and
Well,
you're talking about
it's
my decision
just
making
part of it too,
and
it is
opportunities.
just part of it. Yep.
So for my church is a very big organization with lots of structure. And so my participation in church and my roles or assignments, like my decision-making process would be completely different in that environment than, as you mentioned, when I'm kind of the captain, the founder of First Class Business, and as a host, as Vision Pros Live. It's like there's a lot of different, I think there's a lot of different changes that go on there. But I'd love to hear your thoughts further about that. It's like, is that normal that we switch?
Well,
Is there
I
an underlying
suspect
principle to focus on?
I suspect you're more collaborative when and your secondary was a collaborative process, and you had a tiny bit of risk. So you do, you are able to think about, probably in the church aspect, you're thinking more collaboratively. Gosh, there's some people here that will have really great ideas about where we're taking the church. And then for
An
you,
interesting concept. I think I'm actually far more controversial on the church side. But I've disciplined myself. Like I kind of eliminate myself from the experience because I tend to be extremely collaborative, but in a way that, like, I'll use the whole Jesus analogy. It's like there was the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and he was willing to talk to both of them, but at the end of the day, he was going to come in and crack a whip and say, like, this is complete. Like, let's bring the people outside in to opinion, like this here. And that's kind of me. I'm like, no, we're going to go find real people, and
yeah,
talk to them about how they feel about things. But it it's but are you saying that our personality, I shouldn't say personality, sorry, our
yeah.
decision making types, archetypes, as a visionary, as a risk, what I would get out of studying that is going to help me in all scenarios? Or do I redo the assessment for my different organizations or participations to see what's most appropriate for that scenario?
Yeah, that's interesting. Most people, well, I don't, I only know that people come out the same on that, but you could try and do an external assessment on yourself too and see whether that might come up with something different as to how you're really behaving, which,
Yeah.
how somebody else sees you, which can be interesting because it doesn't
As you can
always.
tell, I'm going to push capacity bias to the absolute limit. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's where I fall. But okay,
Yeah,
no, that's cool.
interesting.
So
Interesting.
if there's a company out there right now and they would tremendously benefit from this tool, what size company are they? What are they facing? Who's the most likely to really just like garnish a ton of value out of this?
Yeah. Probably not companies under 20. And, we really target over 200, but we do board assessments. We do, a lot of different, not assessments, because we're not, we're just showing you what you have. But, anybody that's interested in ensuring that they understand the talent, one of the big things that comes up is people, you're doing the assessment and looking, we've got a recommendation engine when you're making a decision, and it'll say who you're missing, what you're missing. The thing you want to avoid is homogeny, whether it's in
What is
gender.
homogeny?
Well, it's the sameness. You want to stop sameness of cognitive diversity. You want to stop sameness of all sorts of things, like the same ethnicity. And ethnicity is an interesting one because there's, really great studies around juries on this. And, if you let's say the homogenized group is white people and they're on a jury, we look around the room, come to really quick decisions. And that's one of the ways of telling whether you're lacking a good decision room, if you can all make a decision like that. There's something, if there's nothing else going on in there. And
Right.
it's not, it's not saying that this slows down the process. You can still say, we've got an hour to do this. And if you structure your decision room, and this is one of the tests Juliet did a lot, you can structure the decision room, give both times where you've structured it and you haven't, this will come out with a better outcome than this, and you've done it in the same amount of time. But the jury, if you put a person of color in the room, it's not just that the different experience that's being introduced. The people that are homogenized check themselves and go, all right, there's a different perspective here. And they become better decision makers with that influence.
Wow, that's really interesting. That makes sense, because it opens your mind to think about things that you wouldn't otherwise correlate with. And it is an interesting reality because if we rewind 40 to 50 years, people who grew up in a home and in a certain community, like there was very little outside influence that could adjust people's paradigms. But I think of, an ex-sister-in-law of mine. She spent so much time in her room with anime and with Japanese culture stuff. She was a completely different breed of person than everybody else in that home. And so nowadays with YouTube and influence and Netflix and all the different things, like race and perspective, even neighborhoods, like that doesn't have the same type of weight and impact that it used to. There's other variables that exist from an influential standpoint that make it interesting to know, like, well, I can't just assume that white person from Northeast San Antonio, Texas, is automatically going to be conservative. Whereas when I was growing up, like it was like 99% guaranteed that was going to be the reality. And so we need tools in order to open up our own view of like, well, wait, where are we influenced from? Because that person might think they're completely influenced from Texas, but in reality, they've been in YouTube their whole life, not actually in the Texan environment. So you mentioned a tool that you have. Well, where is it? Because the one that helps you see who needs to be in the room, I would love to play with that.
Yeah, well, that's the full platform. And so the first step you do is just it's called the Live Decisions platform or something on there. If you go to our platform,
I went digging. I was digging while you're talking. I was like,
you're in solutions, I think. So go to
so platform, Live Decision Science tool.
Yep. So this is where you can see it's got the rating. It'll say you're low right now. You're trying to go from red to green. So it'll say, look, your decision panel strength is low. And see how it's got those buttons. It doesn't look like this in the actual thing, but it'll see how it's got the buttons, and it'll say, it might say to you that everybody in this group's over 65, or it might say you don't have any analyzers. You just press the button and it'll show you who you in your organization is worried about risk or this or that. And then it shapes that. So a lot of some of what we talk about a lot are defensible decisions. I think philosophically, decision making, good or bad, only time will tell. There's that philosophy. So you got to do the best you can at the time. And if you say to the board, look, we made this decision and we got a green light, we used these people, we thought about it this way. Like it's showing you that you've actually considered who's in the room and what you're doing rather than,
Yes. Oh, I love it. No, that's so cool. And I like how you pointed out, I think you said 20 people. When a company gets to 20 people or more, like this tool becomes that much more effective. And visionaries, please don't close your minds to that and think, well, I'm going to wait till 20 people. Like, no.
You can do.
This is something that I want now.
You might not. You can use the other thing for small companies is, and scale ups are one of our biggest moving customers because they don't want to hire a Deloitte or a BCG to have a decision framework, which costs you a lot of money. This just gets you going almost immediately. 10 minutes later, you're in and you're like, okay, right, I can see. And if you do have under 20 people, just do the decision profile mapping. You don't have to necessarily worry. That will give you a lot. And it'll also make you realize, oh, maybe I should have had, Karen in the room or whoever else. But
we don't want Karen in the room. I'm just kidding.
I was just no. So you should have had whatever. But one of the other really interesting stats we're seeing is that 40 to 60% of people that our recommendation engine is showing them have not been invited into that particular decision before. So it's really unearthing people. And the thing that we're really interested in writing about at the moment is the change in decision language amongst the company. And, we're early stage, but this is kind of stuff we're trying to think about and get back from our clients. What are you seeing? How are you talking differently? And, we've given the tool to, when we were starting out, to a lot of not-for-profits to assess. And we've just gotten some great, unreal feedback about what they saw and what they heard and how it's changed their management and how it's changed, that management down. And as you can imagine, with a tool like Wizer, those that need it most want it least. And so,
yes. That's so true.
To those people, one of the ways I get them to listen is I say, well, how do you delegate with certainty? Because they still, in a lot of companies, 3% of people make all the decisions. So how do you delegate with certainty? And they'll say, oh yeah, all right, I've got a problem here, I've got a problem there.
You rely on the 3%.
Yeah, and we've just integrated our Right tool, which is really good for helping us sell into problem teams, because you go in and you've done your assessment. You go, right, I want to send this message to Jackson. And it'll say he's a visionary. You write the message, and it'll say to you, hey, he would like to hear the message received in this way. And, we've assessed 300 emails from donors and, charities that do donor and whatever. They're missing the mark on three main. They're just not talking to them. They're really upbeat emails, but they're not talking to analyzers, achievers and guardians at all. So.
Wow. You have inspired me in such a big way. The tool already caught some attention, but what you just said about giving the tools to nonprofit organizations, immediately I was like, oh, I want to do that. I want to give the tools that we've built on our side to 100 nonprofits. That would be so cool. And then beyond, but to start with, Vision Pros, when we give tools like this, when we give our substance out to people, we have an opportunity to also receive all sorts of phenomenal feedback in addition to making positive change throughout the world. So there's so much value in that. And I built tools specifically for sales conversations and for raising funding. And so it's there's nonprofits would benefit so much from that, but I hadn't thought about that until you just said that one little thing. And so there's so much value that comes out of this. Visionaries, explore tools like this, find out how to make better decisions and what types of people you have around you and how to fill the room with the right people. I'm going to be diving into that next tool. The link that I'm going to be going to for that is Wizer, wizer.business/tools/decision science live. That will be where I go next and play with. I've got to put Claude on pause a little bit because I'm like, oh no, this is gonna be fun. And that's big to say because I'm building my own tools that are very important. But that's how important this process is for entrepreneurs like myself, my friends. Being a visionary and being an entrepreneur, it's not easy. It is not a solo endeavor. It is something that requires bringing the right people in. I'm constantly organizing, recruiting, talking to people, trying to see who the right fit is, and having a tool like this by my side, if it does everything that I think it can, and that I saw just now, even if it just does what I just saw right now, whoa, you are a godsend, Kylee. Thank you for what you've built. I'll give you the final word. If you have one final piece of advice or counsel for visionaries out there, what would it be?
Yeah, I think go and find yourself a process person so you can get it, make sure it's implemented. Go and find yourself a deliverer and make sure it gets implemented. And, they'll say, hey, you haven't even written out the word here or what, you need to do this. They'll show you what you need to do. And, we were chatting to a university the other day, the head of DEI, and they fill the room with what they consider the right to, they've got everything. And he said, but we're not moving. We can't move once we get there. And I we're in the middle of working with them, but yeah, they're lacking. Then they haven't been thinking about the beyond having a nice looking room about how they're going to get going on the action part.
That's it. Go get yourself a business partner, my friends. I know Gino Wickman calls it the integrator, but Michael Gerber, he's cool too, but Michael Gerber talks about how you need that business partner by your side, not just an integrator, not somebody to take advantage of, somebody that you're going to decide, who else do we need in this room beyond that person? But it is super, super important to us to get that process-oriented person. We will see you guys on the next episode. Everybody take care.
Thank you for being here today. I'm really happy that you tuned in to Vision Pros Live. I'm looking forward to seeing your reactions as these episodes continue to move forward. This is going to get more and more fun. We'll have more and more engagement as well. We'll invite people to participate in the show. And thank you for giving us your time and attention. Have an excellent time building out your vision and becoming a vision pro yourself.